Hi everyone, it's Aaron and Heidi with the Book Brood, and here we are today to bring you our Diversathon 2.0 wrap-up.
Yep.
So how many did you finish for?
I finished one.
Oh.
One novella. I failed epically on Diversathon.
I finished two, and one was a middle grade, so I didn't do much better, I guess. We did about fair. So you did try
I put
several.
a dent in several other things, but I only finished one.
Right. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about the first one I read, and that is Esperanza Rising. This is by Pam Munoz Ryan. This is about Mexican immigrants that immigrate to the United States during the U.S. Depression, when there's work camps and California farms, things like that. And the unique, a big part of the story here is that Esperanza was essentially an heiress of a very wealthy landowner in Mexico, and when her father dies, there's just shifty things that go on legally and things like that essentially they end up being very poor. There's actually a moment on a train where Esperanza saying to her mother, "Why are you speaking to those people? They're peasants." And her mother says, "Well, Esperanza, we are peasants now." And so it takes a lot of adjustment for her as a young child to accept the new way that things are.
Sure.
And this covers a subject that gets kind of glossed over in U.S. education, and that is that a mass amount of people of Hispanic origin were deported from the United States during the Great Depression, and many of them were U.S. citizens, actual citizens that just were rounded up and just sent to Mexico that had never even been to Mexico in their lives, you know. And so just very unfortunate event that I knew loosely about, but it was good to get a more intimate view of this. This is loosely based on Pam Ryan's grandmother story. So I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a middle grade, so that was an adjustment for me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to judge it too much on that, but it was easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fine.
It was for a different target audience.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. The one thing that I did finish for Diversathon is Vinti by Nettie Okorafor, and this was actually going to be on my TBR for next month, but the library had it. And this is a very short novella, and it is about a woman who comes from a very small town where her people are very traditional, and nobody really leaves the town to visit the rest of Earth, let alone leave Earth. And this is in a distant future where there are entire planets dedicated to different schools and different cities. There's just so massive. And she gets invited to attend university on this planet, and she's the first of her people who's ever been invited, and her family doesn't want her to go, and she is trying to come into her own identity while still retaining her roots and her past. And she interacts with a bunch of different aliens, and this has to do a lot with being discriminated against, not only from different species, but also from other humans. Her people are considered second-class citizens, I guess. And so this was interesting. I wish this would have been a lot longer. I feel like a lot was packed in these 90 pages, but it could have easily been expanded to a 300 or 400 page book and been more fleshed out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars.
All right. This one I'm counting for Diversathon because it's written by a Jewish woman in her 40s who is never married and a single mother, and this is called Marry Him, The Case for Settling for Mr. Goodenough by Lori Gottlieb. I heard about this on an internet thread, an Ask Men, and the question was, how would you feel if you found this book amongst your wife's things? And so I knew I had to read it after reading that. And I sent her a text message so she wouldn't get the wrong idea of why I was reading it. I'll actually put the screenshot of her reply here because it was pretty funny. This is essentially a 41-year-old single mother trying to figure out analytically why she has such little success in dating. And so she talks to psychologists, sociologists, behavior therapists, and matchmakers, and all these different people, even interviewing groups of singles in their 20s, in their 40s, in their and then just women in their 60s too, her mother's age. And I guess what I found very interesting about this is just it's not from my place in life at all, being a married father who's been in that situation for 7 years now, and just some of the fascinating nuances of dating that I had either forgotten or never even realized that were there. This is mostly coming from the female perspective, but I've seen a lot of just the, I guess, mistakes or just bad practices on from all genders. And so I think this provides a lot of good insight into what you actually need to look for in a partner instead of what you think you want in a partner, and what makes for someone that's exciting when you're on a date with them or just dating them when you're younger does not exactly translate to who's going to make a good life partner, who's going to make a good parent to share the parenting roles with, and to run a household with too. And just very, very fascinating. I kept laughing about how the author and single women her age would get so hung up about hair. He has to still have hair. He can't be bald. He can't. I didn't realize that was such a stigma, and apologies to bald men out there. That's unfortunate, and short guys too. Really short. That's just unfortunate there. And single people of 20 up should read this book just to get some perspective on picking up a partner and things like that. I mean, she's probably done with hearing about this book.
I love how much you enjoyed it.
It was just, I would stop just and laugh and just have to tell her about all these parts, and it was so funny. So funny, just very cleverly written. Yeah.
I think it would be interesting reading that because our relationship, like, we basically arranged our own marriage.
Right.
Basically.
We didn't have a traditional dating situation like is like most have. We were thrust into the role of sharing a household and parenting very early, and so it was very sink or swim for us, and then that could have gone very wrong.
It could have. It very much could have.
But luckily,
it worked out.
It worked out very well. We're very happy with one another, and it was an interesting perspective to take it from, and seeing that people trying so hard in dating and having time to nitpick these potential partners.
Right.
Yeah. And one thing I wish was in the book, it did not take a perspective from gay couples, which I think would have been a very interesting perspective to have, in how how someone in that same situation as her, but of a different sexual persuasion or preference, views the dating world and their own struggles there. So I might have to look for something about that now, but
yeah,
I might pick up Moody Bitches now,
really,
too, and read that because I I didn't realize I needed this insight into the female mind.
That's awesome. Okay, I started but did not finish several other things. I'm just going to run through them real quick. I started Octavia Butler's Fledgling, and I hit a stumbling block how far did I get? I'm about 50 pages into this, but the main character is a vampire in a 10-year-old girl's body, and she has sexual relations with grown men, and when there are passages where it's talking about he's saying, wow, you don't have any body hair, or you don't have any breasts, this is kind of weird, but then there's like a lot of sex. It was too much for me, and I can't handle it right now. I'm gonna move on to different Octavia Butler. And then I read through several more stories in Kabu Kabu, but I am not going to finish this before returning it to the library. I got halfway through, I read the first 10 stories, and I really enjoyed this from Nnedi Okorafor. These are based off of Nigerian, what would you call those, like urban legends?
Oh, yeah.
So I really enjoyed this, but I have...
Excuse me. Sorry about that.
I have a hard time reading straight through a short story collection when...
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're all the same, but I'm working my way through Nnedi Okorafor's work, and I'm seeing very common threads throughout them all, and I'm seeing that, like, she was working through certain ideas in these short stories that later on became some of her other longer work. So I'm not sure. It just feels a little bit like
it's not refined yet. She hasn't
yeah,
refined her style.
it's not quite there yet.
Yeah.
So, and then one thing that I am going to finish because I am very much enjoying it. This is Like Water for Chocolate by Laura Esquivel. I am a little over 100 pages into this, and I am loving it, and so I will be finishing this over the next week.
Sounds very interesting what you've told me so far.
It is. It's very unique, but it's funny.
Okay. Yeah. All right, there's how we did on Diversathon. Go ahead and let us know in the comments how you did, what you read, how you felt about it, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.